morning and welcome to the Tampa Bay Chamber's Women's Economic Mobility webinar. I am Lindsay Grinstead, Marketing and Sponsorship Director for International Plaza and the Chamber's Women of Influence Committee co-chair. Today's webinar is hosted in partnership between the Chamber's Women of Influence Committee and the Workforce Development Committee. This is a great example of the Chamber's committees working together to bring important topics to our members. Balancing work and family obligations has long been the reality for women in the United States. The pandemic has been tough on women's careers, forcing them out of the workplace at nearly 4 times the rate of their male counterparts. Women are also more likely than men to own businesses and industries that have been hit by the pandemic. Our first speaker this morning is Ashley Wilson, Vice President, Government Affairs and Managing Director of Public Affairs at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Ashley is a legislative strategist with deep knowledge of politics and process, sharpened over a 20-year career in Washington, D.C. As we begin our discussion this morning on the impact of the pandemic on women in the workforce, Ashley will provide policy and data-driven context to our conversation. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you, Lindsay, for the introduction, and thank you to the Tampa Bay Chamber for hosting this amazing event. I'm thrilled to be here and to meet so many fabulous women. As Lindsay said, I'm Ashley Wilson, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Vice President of Government Relations, and I also lead a program called Women Taking the Lead. Tampa Bay asked me to help frame this discussion to talk about what the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is really seeing in the workforce, to give you an overview of what we are seeing, what we expect to see over the next year, and sort of what trends to pay attention in 2021. Okay, so we all know, and Lindsay mentioned this, that the pandemic has been very difficult for women. We've seen over 3 million women drop out of the workforce. And, we've all seen the reports. It will take nearly 5 straight months of July job gains to return to pre-pandemic job levels for women. And to put that into context, really, that's just a lot of women over a lot of time have to re-enter the workforce to get back to where we were. But the good news is entrepreneurs like you in this room and on our panel are helping the economy bounce back. And there's been a long history to this. After the 2008 financial crisis, maybe some of you guys were around for that, I certainly was, the female entrepreneurs emerged in record numbers to help the US economy recover. And once again, we're seeing that as a surge of new businesses are coming out of the pandemic. That's right. So many of you that are on this panel and on this call right now are being counted as helping the economy. According to the US Census, 1.5 million new business applications as of mid-December 2020 were women. 40% of female entrepreneurs launched their business because of the pandemic. I just get shivers thinking about that. And that's good news, right? It's great news because, we all know this, women founders are 2 times as likely to have a business that doubles not only as a social venture, but as a way of making money. So we help the economy and we help our community thrive when women found businesses. 2020 is being labeled as the entrepreneurial revolution. And never has it been so easy for women to start a business and build an audience. COVID has taught us there's a huge desire for all of us to maybe have a more flexible work schedule and the right to work remotely. Entrepreneurship has helped us achieve both. What we're seeing right now for entrepreneurs and corporate leaders is, social media has made it just easy. It's made it easier to start and grow your business. You don't need, as an entrepreneur, you don't need to pay money to engage an audience. Another advantage I'm seeing are a trend that we're seeing, and you've maybe have signed up for these as well, is that The traditional type of MBAs hasn't often appealed to women, maybe yoga instructors or personal chefs or counselors or therapists or small business owners. They are small business owners, they are entrepreneurs, and they don't often see themselves as that. And we're seeing more sort of entrepreneurial type MBAs that the traditional MBA school wouldn't attract. And so, you're opening the door for other types of sort of female-led, female experienced help. And that's been really exciting. We've seen a lot of growth in that area. In fact, I was just talking to a company just the other day. The company's name is Self-Made, and they were offering up to 600 scholarships for entrepreneurs to learn. And it's just all women. They offer free all-day summits for women to kind of learn about what to do, how to do, when to do it, how to generate consistent revenue, and how to keep doing the things that you love. You know this. Women thrive off of community. That's why we're all here. We thrive off connection and then mentorship. We long for opportunities to meet each other and to meet other entrepreneurs and corporate leaders just like us. And that's why at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we launched Women Taking the Lead. At the Chamber, I found the higher up in your career you got, the more time you're spending mentoring your teams and helping and supporting, but there wasn't really anyone else there that you could share your issues and concerns with. And so we put together a network of just high-level C-suite executives that are on the rise. And because we want to see and support more women in the boardroom, we want to see more women in leadership, we want to see more women entrepreneurs. And that's what we're doing at the Chamber. And clearly that's what you're doing here in Tampa Bay. Groups like this group and what the events you're hosting, thank you to Lindsay and Erin and Lakeisha and Amy, everybody that's involved here for putting this on, because it will make a difference and you will make connections. So I ask you to lean into that. Because, right, despite the equity strides that we've seen over the years, and we've seen these reports, gender parity is a long way off, and especially among senior leaders. 1 in 5 C-suite executives is a woman, and 1 in 25 C-suite executives is a woman of color. And I actually don't even believe that statistic. It might even be, much different than that. So adding even one woman to the top makes a huge difference to our companies, and it really can shape the business. You don't want just one unicorn, one woman at the top. It doesn't make a difference. But when you have a group of women, change happens. Women tend to lean into flexibility, and they have more confidence when there's more of us together. So that's what we're looking for, and that's the change we want. Really exciting is Suzanne Clark. She's our first female CEO of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in 109 years. That's incredible. She is leading the business voice for America. She was chosen as a woman, and she was chosen because of her leadership. And she's fond of saying this, and I love it, so I'm just going to repeat it here. This isn't about advancing women for advancing women's sake. This is about the fact that women are half the talent pool. They are half the market. Women are 70 or 80% of our purchasing power in the United States and across the country and world. Women control $11 trillion of investable assets. So this isn't about girl power for girl power's sake. It's really about the most diverse thought to make businesses strong. There's already a business case out there. The more diverse the company is, the better it does. So, we say, and I think the Tampa Bay Chamber agrees with this and says it as well, when you wake up at the Chamber, you wake up believing that the most beautiful sentence a person will ever hear is, "You got the job," right? You got the job so you can take care of your family. You got the job so you can take care of your community. So the more job creators we have, the better off our families and our communities are going to be. So we need more women at the top in corporate leadership roles and entrepreneurships and small businesses, not just for girl power's sake, but because women are smart, they persevere, they're half the market, half the talent pool, they're 3/4 of the purchasing power, and that voice is really necessary. So every time you think about joining a meeting and not having your video on, put that on. Your voice is so important. Businesses are hiring you. They want you as entrepreneurs because they know you have money. You are buying, you're in control of $11 trillion of investable assets. So turn that video on, show up at those meetings, go for those advanced roles, and just be there, knowing that you deserve to be there. Now, I want to kind of just touch on something that the age-old question of balance. And that question is coming up more and more every day, right? So you can call it balance, you can call it integration or sway. And no matter the name, the goal is the same, is to combine our work and our life in ways that means purpose. And this aspiration is increasingly urgent during the pandemic to reprioritize our health, our mental health, and our family. And, we're seeing corporate America change. Maybe not fast enough as we all would like, but corporate America is changing. The world is changing. And we're seeing entrepreneurs, women-owned businesses start if they don't change because they're leaving the workforce to have that flexibility. So if you look at the headlines, you know that the balance is suggesting it's achievable going forward. I talked to a company today, or last night, not today, because that would have been really early in the morning, is Buffer and Kickstart, both of them. They're implementing 4-day work days. And those are high-tech companies. We're also seeing more and more companies offer backup care, mental health benefits, and almost half the companies we surveyed are making changes to vacation, paid time off, and sick leave to boost that flexibility. And in fact, even the blue chip companies, right? Citi, Ford, Target, they just told us they've announced they're going to have a slew of part-time jobs. So employees can work from home part-time. Us at the chamber, I don't know about Tampa or everyone everywhere else, but we're working 3 days at least remotely and 2 days, 3 days in the office, 2 days remotely. So there is more flexibility coming. But really what this means is it adds up to an emerging consensus that corporate America knows that we need to give our employees more time and resources to take care of ourselves and our family. And, to be honest, it's just all about the war on talent. Right now, there's more jobs than there are people. I mean, there are a lot of jobs that need to be filled. We hear it across the country. You probably hear it in Tampa. We need people to keep talent, to attract talent, to grow talent. You're going to need that flexibility and virtual work options, at least at the corporate side. And there are so many other options that are out there that still need to be considered. But if we were to talk about the long-term forecast, it's the long-term forecast on flexibility and balance is a little bit more unclear to me. Researchers are now saying, who specialize gender in the workforce, more in that while balance is attainable right now for a few lucky folks, the long-term approach is unclear. It's sort of a mixed bag. We all know we're working more. And even with virtual work, women are working longer hours than before. And when polled, women feel more expectation to prioritize work than other parts of their lives. So when COVID forced so many offices to shutter, some people predicted that we'd all be baking bread, or we would be, training for a marathon. But I don't know about you. I didn't bake bread. I didn't train for a marathon. I wish I could say I read 21 books in 2021, but I haven't. I've worked a lot more. And so in the wake of, and we know it because daycares were closed, schools were closed, we were all at home teaching our kids. Maybe more in DC and you guys in Florida, and we're all jealous about that, but more than 3 million, again, women dropped out of the workforce because of this. And employees that stayed worked longer. So there is some talk about the male-dominated work type cultures may have become more entrenched during the pandemic than not. And so that's sort of an interesting thing to consider. And it's because the intensification of work, on average, people are just working more. And then also a lot of this support, temporary nature of support, is it temporary? Is it long-term? Is it clear and actionable support policies? And so we're just working this out of, what this is going to look like long-term. And so there is still some more questions. There are questions out there about long-term. But companies are offering great policies and change policies that are for the better for all of us. But when surveyed, it seems that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of them. Women are feeling a little bit nervous that if they take that extended maternity leave or extended help, or that they use the flexibility, they might be seen as less competent. So look, most professionals understand it takes hours. I mean, a lot of you here are small business owners, and you didn't work 40 hours. I guarantee you didn't work 40 hours to get your business up and running. Even Elon Musk just tweeted, no one ever changed the world working 40 hours. And Jordan King, he's a California-based venture capitalist. He tweeted, the best thing young people can do early in their careers is to work on weekends. So, and we've seen employees who work 50 hours or more earn up to 8% more an hour, compared to women who are working 35 or 40 hours. So, there's still a lot of discussion. There's still a lot of change. Things aren't clear. There is a reason for optimism, though. First, of course, the remote policies have given a lot of women optimism about being able to stay home and work. And as we learn to balance more and sort of turn off our computers and work on our own balance, I think it's going to be incredibly helpful for more women. But the tight labor market is putting pressure on competitors to keep and retain talent. So what you need, you can ask for in a lot of cases. And we're making big strides in childcare so everyone can return to the workforce. So there's a lot of help in this area. There is a nationwide conversation that was never truly on the table before. We've never talked about childcare. We've never talked about flexibility the way we're talking about it. Working at the Chamber for over 20 years, that has never been on the table as a discussion. And now it is. And companies are coming, they're asking us, what are other companies doing? How can we address this? There's a lot of effort behind this. So again, we have a lot to talk about today. I can't wait to hear what the panelists have to say. They're fabulous women. You've heard a little bit about what we're seeing in the workforce, what we see might be coming down the road, and what are some of the trends for the next 2021, 2022. And really, I'd like to transition back to all of you to hear from our incredibly smart panelists. I'd love to hear from the audience about your small business, your experience in corporate America, or on your entrepreneurial journey, because part of my job is to assess and to hear and to take it back and to continue these conversations across the country. So what I would love to hear is, what can we do to help you be successful? But thank you. Thank you to the Tampa Chamber.
Ashley, thank you so much for being here with us today. Your perspective is invaluable. And while we clearly have a lot of work still to do, there are some glimmers of hope and some positive, some things moving in the positive direction. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I really appreciate I think we all probably really appreciate the conversation about balance and that being part of the discussion in today's corporate America. And now moving on to our panel discussion, I know we're all excited to hear from them. I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. First, we have Lakeisha Kinsey Salas. She is a partner at Fisher Phillips in the Tampa office. With extensive experience representing public and private sector employers of all sizes and across several industries, her experience includes, but is not limited to, providing day-to-day advice on workplace issues, developing and reviewing handbooks, and offering preventative strategies through training and risk assessment. Next, we have Amy Tart. She is a teacher turned entrepreneur. Amy owns Lady in the Mug, a downtown coffee shop with the tagline, "Using coffee as an excuse to do good." After traveling to Portland to attend coffee school, she opened her first location in Coral Springs, Florida, and recently celebrated the grand opening of her Tampa location. And finally, we have Beth Garland. She is a Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Ultimate Medical Academy. Beth is responsible for developing and implementing integrated human resource strategies that encompass recruiting, engagement, talent management, and HR operations. We also have our moderator, Erin Carlson, who is the chair of the Workforce Development Committee. Thank you all for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay, so much for that introduction. I am thrilled to be here today to moderate this discussion with our speakers. And as we've mentioned already, we've got a fabulous group, and I think this will be a great discussion. As Lindsay mentioned, my name is Erin Carlson. I'm the principal of ERC Strategies and the Chamber of the Chair's Workforce Development Committee. Our panelists are four incredible women who will be sharing with us lessons learned, best practices, and opportunities for employers to support women in the workforce. If you have a question as we're navigating this panel today, please feel free to use the chat feature and we'll do our best to get through all of them. We've got a lot of great questions already scripted, but of course, anything that comes up, I'll be able to see and we can help to navigate our conversation as well. All right, so we're going to jump right in, and some of these questions we'll have each of our panelists answer, some may be more geared towards one panelist in particular. My first just sort of broad general question for the group is, right out of the gates, how has the pandemic impacted your line of work, your business, and the sphere professionally that you experienced over the last almost 2 years? I'd love to maybe kick us off with Amy as a small business owner in the community. And Amy, if you could just give us kind of some high level thoughts on how you've navigated the last 18 plus months and how it maybe has shifted and shaped your business, specifically as a woman entrepreneur.
Of course. So as a woman entrepreneur, I think the pandemic really was either you shift or you're stuck. For me, I really had to assess what can I do, A, to stay open, B, to still get my guests through the door, either to take out or just to make profit. And also, how can I support my coffee superheroes at this time so they feel safe to come to work and supported? Am I making sure that they're okay as well? Because it always starts from within. So we transitioned from having a lot of dine-in to curbside. So we were able to do curbside orders where you could just place your order on our website and we run it out to you. So that was a really safe way for people to be able to still get their food and drinks without feeling at risk. Another thing we started doing, we're using the delivery services, Uber Eats and DoorDash and all those things. Those were really important to partner because people still wanted to experience that going out and being served kind of feeling, but also wanted to be safe and protect themselves and their families. I made sure that we had open communication. If anybody didn't feel comfortable coming to work, we had no problem with that. I personally worked 6 days a week. I've been doing that since I can't even remember. But I believe in leading by example as well. If I don't want to come to work, why would my coffee superheroes want to go there either? So I think it was all about creating a positive, safe environment, being open to the feedback of our coffee superheroes, our guests, and also just connecting with the community. We partnered with a nonprofit organization, and I went every Thursday, picked up an entire car of cans and goods because I know people were losing their jobs. And I always think, how can we use coffee as an excuse to do good? Picked up all these supplies, put it outside with a sign, hey, we have cans, not can nots. We are here for you. And they could take whatever they wanted. So I think it's just about being creative and being able to make transitions and not allowing yourself to just have a pity party or be like, I can't believe this is happening. I always think it's happening to other people too. Now, how can I get creative and innovative with how we can stay open and make it through this pandemic?
Excellent. So savvy, Amy. I love it. Beth, maybe we can switch to you now. Obviously, with UMA being a huge both employer of women and many of your students in the community at UMA being women, tell us a little bit about how your organization, from the student perspective and from the employee perspective, was impacted and is continuing to be impacted by the pandemic.
Sure. So UMA, as you mentioned, we're based here in Tampa, but our students are all over the United States, and over 90% of our students are females. They're often moms, single working moms that are trying to fit school in around the myriad of other responsibilities they have. And our workforce, on the other hand, is about 70% female. So our employees help to support our students through their academic and their career journey at UMA. And everybody was impacted. I mean, from making the really tough decision to head home on March 17th, 2020, such a day that we sent home over 1,500 office-based employees with bins of desktop computers, because that's who we were. We worked side by side in cubicles, calling and emailing and supporting our students over the phone. And that was frightening, as you can imagine. We had never worked in a work from home environment in that big way before. We'd done a few little small pilots that had started just a few months earlier of trying to send a few people home to see what it would be like and if our systems would work. So it was a really big transition, but we were so proud that we were able to do that and able to not miss a beat for our students. Our students do depend on us to, as I said, kind of navigate both their academic journey, but we're also there to help them with their lives. Our students, like a lot of working moms and a lot of just people, face a lot of hurdles when they're trying to change their educational outlook, when they're taking on this new, really exciting opportunity to learn something to transform their lives and the lives of their children. But it's not always easy. They might lose their job, and many did. We saw an unfortunate increase in the rise of domestic violence that our students were experiencing, and we, had a system in place to help support them through that. But that became even more critical because we found that shelters and safe houses were full, and it was a really difficult time to navigate for them. But I know we'll talk later about some of the support we provide our students, but we just had to beef all of that up. It was more critical that we could support our students at this difficult time with both mental health resources as well as just their normal career and academic resources. And then the same for our team members. I know we've all felt it. We've hit that pandemic wall a few times in the last 16 months, and we all go through kind of ups and downs. We were so happy to be at home and safe, and then it kept going and it kept going. And so I do know that our own team members have faced some ups and downs, and we've really tried to focus as an organization about how do we bring our culture to life in this new world, and then also how do we support our team members. And we launched a number, Ashley, you made my heart sing when you talked about how many employers are providing mental health resources. We did the same thing with 24/7 mental support as well, and emotional well-being, as well as a lot of dedicated speakers and new venues that our team members can just open up and share from, when all of the work was happening last year around Black Lives Matters and continues to, we created open forums with discussion moderators that just gave people a safe place to kind of share what they were feeling and what they were going through. We've done that with mental health as well, in addition to providing resources. So we're really trying to make sure that our community stays alive as an organization, and that we have the place and the safety to share with each other and to continue to grow, not just in our careers, but as people.
Excellent, Beth. Thank you. Yes, we've learned a lot about all the creative ways that UMA is supporting their community and just doing an excellent job of adapting. So we're excited to learn more about some of those best practices. Lakeisha, on the other side of the coin, I know not only are you and your personal organization, did you have to adapt, but also a lot of adapting probably had to occur for the clients that you serve and the work that they do. And I'm just curious to know how you identified opportunities for pivoting and needing to adapt and change to best support your client base during the last year and a half.
Absolutely, Erin. So, it's interesting in the professional services world, and particularly in the legal profession, we had a front row seat to all the crazy and just unknown territory that businesses had to walk in, small, big, in this pandemic space, and wondering what can we do, one, to save the culture of our organization, two, just how do we sustain ourselves as a business, not knowing how long we'll be here. Every day we were advising employers on what to do to answer those questions, from, flexible policies. Some employers didn't have remote workplace policies in place, so having to do those things because you're in a place that you want to keep your employees safe, but you also want to ensure that the work is being done. And interesting enough, we also had to be mindful of our own businesses, right? We have employees that we want to make sure they're taken care of, that they're also being able to do work. So it was interesting that while we're advising employers how to pivot, we too had to pivot. And then just from a operational standpoint, just as businesses were experiencing shutdowns with vendors, we were experiencing shutdowns with courts and other things like that, learning how to do remote depositions and things that we weren't doing as frequently. So I think not just lawyers, but other industries impacted in the professional services world would agree that I think we've learned a lot about how we can continue to deliver great services if we're flexible. So the same message that we've been giving our clients along the way, I think we're getting a dose of our own medicine about just being nimble and being able to pivot on the spot to continue doing what we do.
Excellent. Yeah, the work that you do is so important to the businesses that you serve, not only in a normal non-pandemic time, right, Lakeisha? So we're seeing a lot of that changing. Lakeisha, I'm going to pivot to another question that I'm curious to get your perspective on, and then the other panelists as well. Obviously, the last year has exposed how fragmented our caregiving systems are and just general family support, right? And I think, as Ashley mentioned, this has really been an opportunity for us to rethink and revolutionize our systems for caregiving, specifically family leave and affordable childcare policies. I'm just curious if there are any trends or patterns that you've noticed, Lakeisha, for how you might see businesses that you partner with maybe changing some of those policies, maybe being more forgiving, or just being more accepting of what that might look like moving forward. Anything that you can shed a light on in the clients that you serve that might be helpful for us to know?
Sure. And I think Ashley and Beth both touched on it a little bit. I think employers have had to really think about long term, what do we want to say to our employees? What kind of culture do we keep? If we want to sustain, whether it's women or other groups that are being impacted, negatively, what do we do? And I think it does start with looking at your leave policies and thinking about what are ways that we can be a little bit more flexible. Here in Florida, there's no state law that requires certain types of leaves. It's really an issue of federal law that you're looking at. But as an employer, you can always create programs that provide more to benefit your employees. And it's really about, again, the message that you want to give. So when it comes to whether it's caregiver leave, I've seen extending the amount of leave. And of course, in the pandemic, there were some laws that were passed that required certain leaves specific to COVID. And then you had the opportunity, once those leaves expired, to extend them as a gratuitous thing. And I've seen more and more employers embrace that just because they want to send the message that we care. And then the reality of it is business need to continue operating. They need bodies. I mean, someone alluded to already the fact that there are more jobs than there are people. And so I think the way that you navigate that issue, particularly for women, is to provide that flexibility with leave. And I think, you didn't ask this directly, but I think it goes into the other issue that particularly Beth was talking about, that when you're looking at your benefits, really look at ways that you can be more flexible that go to the overall well-being of your employees, right? Because the reality is there is certainly a connection between productivity and well-being. And so partnering with your employer-sponsored plans to see what you can do, using your EAP employer assistance programs to assist, I think that's what I've been seeing and what I'm continuing to see the trend. The other issue, and Ashley touched on it, is you can do all these great things, but if your employees don't know about it and they're not using it, then you don't have the benefit. So I think this is the way that employers can be more creative in the messaging and how frequently they inform employees of it, and really encouraging them to take advantage of these benefits. I'll say this and then I'll shut up. I don't know if you all remember Dr. Drew, but I was actually in a room with Dr. Drew yesterday presenting, and he gave some hard, just ugly facts at just how the pandemic has impacted people globally, just with depression and overall mental health. And if that's not a wake-up call to think that we really have to do something to assist employees for the benefit of the employers too, right? Again, so you have that productivity and sustained business. It certainly was eye-opening to me. So I'll leave with just saying, I think you have to be nimble. I think your benefits, your leave, I think that's the way you achieve it. And I think that's the trend we're going to continue to see going forward.
Excellent. No, you bring up great points, Lakeisha. And I think what you mentioned, we'll touch on here in just a little bit, how that impacts the retention piece. And so much of the benefits that we're talking about that the pandemic sort of exposed and brought to light are things that tend to retain people longer, right? Just that flexibility of leave and just support and feeling supported at work, and how that impacts someone's overall happiness at work, but then their retention. And a lot of those benefits aren't a cost from a hard bottom line perspective to an employer. Obviously, there's cost associated with people being out and not being able to work a day, but I think the benefits far outweigh the long-term, potential of retention or turnover. Beth, I'd love to hear your perspective on what UMA is thinking or doing, or maybe has already implemented as it relates to supporting better family leave and childcare perspectives for your employees.
Sure. This was a transformational year for us. People really became front and center in a way that they hadn't been before. We have a vision that we're working toward for 2025, and we have a people pillar that's a key point of that vision. And so we were already on this path, but I think the events of this last year have accelerated our work. So we were not a flexible work environment. We had a very rigid 9 to 6 structure. Many of our faculty members worked remotely, but the rest of us were in the office every day, shoulder to shoulder, forging ahead. And we now have implemented a fully flexible work environment for our team members. Someday, some of us will head back to the office. I'm not sure when that will be. But when they do, we have now more than 917 people that have a flexible work arrangement that's documented in place. Lakeisha, you can imagine all of our new policies we created around that, as well as our documentation. We have another 1,000 employees that are fully remote. So they might come to the office for a training. They might live somewhere else now. We've become a multi-state employer. We've allowed our team members to move around the country. That's also new for us. In the midst of that, we also changed our PTO policy. We had a very rigid structure. You got up to 3 weeks and you never earned any more. Now our team members earn PTO earlier in their careers, and we've added layers of PTO, now up to 6 weeks of PTO, which is life-changing for someone. They can maybe take more time off with their families, or take that special trip that they'd hoped to do when they turn 50 or whatever it is. And just earning PTO sooner and more of it has made such a difference. And interestingly, we had to start really looking at how people were using PTO. We realized people were scared to take it. They were at home. So to your point, I think Ashley mentioned this, people were working all the time and burnout was increasing. And we had a few people leave us last year and just said, I can't do it anymore. I can't teach my children and work and be a mom and do all the things I want to do. We offered part-time employment to those folks if it made it easier for them. And now many of our roles are eligible for part-time, which is also new for us. So it really has been interesting just to see all of that. And then I'm excited, this is a little bit of a precursor because our team is going to find this out soon, but we're updating our parental leave as well. We, like many companies, and I'm sure Lakeisha can talk about how companies are changing, started our parental leave leave with a primary and a secondary caregiver, and you earn different amounts of parental leave based on your role, if you will. We don't think that's inclusive. We don't think it's modern, and we're adjusting that so that no matter your role, mom, dad, secondary caregiver, whatever, everybody earns the same amount of parental leave. And we're moving the tenure timeline up earlier for that as well. So you don't have to work with us as long to earn that. And it'll make a big difference. And we think giving dads parental leave helps working moms, because those moms, they can trade, and one will take leave and the next will, and that baby will get more hands-on care early in their lives. And it gives a mom the opportunity to go back to work sooner. And so we think it's really important to give dads that same opportunity that moms have to have leave. So those are just a few of the things we've done, but gosh, they've made such a difference. And we really saw our lowest attrition that we've ever had as an organization last year. And we're really proud of taking some steps in the right direction as a group. And I will say our executive team is 60% female, and our male counterparts are more than open to every suggestion that we've had around the opportunities to modernize the way we work together and to be more inclusive in the way we work together.
Fantastic, Beth. So many great nuggets and things that you guys are doing so proactively. And I really love to hear how you're making data-driven decisions. So, and you're even going a layer deeper. You're trying to identify, okay, well, if you're giving more PTO, what's the trend that's happening with it? Not just giving the PTO, but then figuring out how are people using it? And if they're not, what's impacting that? It's just so smart and savvy to think through that. And I think it's a testament to how you're really wanting to truly support the individuals in your organization and not just give it and then take it or leave it. You're going that next layer deeper. So fantastic stuff and great takeaways that I think hopefully some business owners on our webinar today might be able to take and implement.
Thanks.
Amy, Amy, I want to switch over to you. Obviously, you know, the nature of your work is very different. You probably would say you don't have the luxury of being able to be virtual, or your business doesn't operate, right? And you need you and other people in your organization to help that. So I don't know if you have any nuggets or thoughts on women maybe that have worked for your organization and how you're supporting them, knowing that you can't be virtual, but still adapting to any of their particular personal situations given the pandemic, and maybe having family at home that need to be taken care of, whether it's pandemic related or even, you know, in the future, just supporting women in your type of business.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, my business is very different. I think for me, it's important for me to step in. If somebody doesn't feel comfortable or they have family at home, I know a lot of owners that just want people to work for them and they don't want to be there. They don't really care. And I think we're going to transition. People want to be cared about, and it has to be more than a paycheck. So I think being authentic and transparent is really important. And it can't just be about you and your numbers and your goals. It has to be about something bigger. I want my coffee superheroes to be a part of a business that does the right thing, isn't afraid to stand up for things, and they're part of something greater than themselves that they could be proud of. So I think it's more just being real with them. It doesn't have to always be polished. If they're having a bad day, let them be there for them. It doesn't have to just be leave it at the door and get to work. So it's just about being empathetic and making sure that the people that are there are happy, or they're going to leave.
Sounds like, Amy, you have built your business on just some of these cultural norms in your organization that ring true probably from the first moment that people interview with you. Calling your employees superheroes is just an awesome testament to how I'm sure you operate in the day-to-day in your business. So thank you for sharing. We mentioned earlier this concept around retention, right? And all of the changes we've seen in retention in the workforce among every type of employee, but as Ashley mentioned, most specifically women, just given some of the extra responsibilities that many women have in their households outside of the workplace. You know, there's a Women in the Workplace study that's been done by McKinsey recently last year that said that more than 1 in 4 women, including senior women, are considering leaving their positions, and Ashley shared some data on that as well. Ashley, I'm wondering if you can maybe share any anecdotal experiences or things that you've noticed in the line of work that you're in around the impact on retention of senior level women in organizations, or just the business community in general, if there's anything that you think would be valuable for us to learn about that. Just kind of retention of women, I guess, is really what we're looking for.
Right. I would say it is a really big issue and something everyone needs to be thinking about before the pandemic. World Economic Forum said it was going to be 99.5 years before we're going to see gender equity in the boardroom. And with the amount of senior women leaving, that number, and it seems unrealistic, so I never even use that number because it's, you know, we're equal, we're out there, we're in a modern world, and so that number always makes me uncomfortable using, but that's in the study that just came out. So if you lose women at this point in their careers, it's going to double that. So that's the real concern, is that we're really going backwards. We, in fact, I think the number of women that I saw was, we are now back to 1988. I know I put this somewhere. 1988, the year of 1988, the number of women, like we've gone that far back in some areas. Now, of course, we're increasing every month. We're increasing the amount of women that are coming back. And but as far as like, how do you retain senior women? Honestly, it goes back to purpose and meaning and balance. And women don't want to give up time with their family for a meaningless position, or that doesn't give not a life-giving role. And so we're seeing companies that are going back to the why. Why are we doing this? What is our purpose? What is our mission? So there's a rethinking, so you can deliver that. So that is real meaning. Because I mean, that's the long-term change, is to be able to, we're not just about selling toilet paper. What is the meaning behind that? And again, for the chamber, we've been able to drill down and say it's about the job. The most meaningful sentence you can give someone is, you got the job. And so having, that sort of perspective of why you exist really does help women. But as far as retaining women at the top level who are working hours and hours and hours and hours and trying to save their company, it's the same thing for everybody. It's the flexibility. It's the meaning and purpose. It's the, you have a voice at the table. There is a future for you. It's not, you see somebody at the top that looks like you, or you see plans that, a pipeline where the company is caring and considering about a more diverse workforce. Chamber has a long way to go on a lot of diversity issues. I'll be the first one to say it. But we're trying to do a pipeline, partnering with Howard University, partnering with, a lot of different diverse colleges, so that we can have more than just one, we can have a community. And so we're bringing in diversity in groups, not just one or two, so that they all feel comforted and supported. And, I think having these real conversations, real empathy, real whys, real, I can see my future and I can see the company changing is what's going to retain more women.
Erin, can I add something really quick?
Absolutely.
So, of course, there's the cultural case for why we need to keep a pulse on this retention issue and do our best efforts to address it. Because, of course, when you have diversity of thought in the room, I think it helps you better achieve your corporate objectives, right? But putting on my lawyer hat for a second and talking about, the business and legal case for it, is that, there is a hard cost, and there's that opportunity cost when you're spending that time to train employees. They get to the level of management or even higher direction or higher position within the company. They have that institutional knowledge. They're responsible for leading teams, and they've been doing a fabulous job doing that, right? And they're that first line of defense against lawsuits and all these things. And then you lose those folks. And now, you have to put people in there that maybe don't have that same level of expertise and institutional knowledge. You've now got to start with getting them understanding the corporate policies, culture, all those things. And so you kind of leave yourself open for exposure to not having that level of strong knowledge, training, background, those things that you use, again, as your first line of defense when you're thinking about lawsuit issues. So, I'm sure we all understand, again, culturally and for other reasons, why we need to look at this. But I also just want to emphasize that there's a huge business legal aspect to this, that if you're not retaining those folks in those senior positions that you've invested in, you're really doing yourself a disservice. So, finding a way to better create mechanisms to support women leaders who are leaving, finding out, your best resource are your people. That's your best capital, right? They are what make you who you are. So understanding what are those things that are primarily driving them out of the workforce, particularly in your industry, is a good starting place. But once you hear that, do something about it, because I tell you, in the long run, it really helps you to retain that knowledge within your business.
You're bringing up such great points, Lakeisha, and the perspective of retention on not just having to go back and rehire, but how it could leave you exposed from a legal perspective, because you've got institutional knowledge of individuals. It's a great point. And you bring up, I think, a larger component to, we spend a lot of time, and in my line of work in the talent acquisition space, it's really easy to put a dollar figure on the hiring process and what it costs to bring someone in. I think across the board, organizations don't spend enough time talking about the real cost, fixed and otherwise, for losing people and turnover. There isn't a lot of information out there on what the true cost of losing someone and having turnover and having to rehire, retrain, all of the months or however much time is lost on getting that person back up to speed for who they're backfilling. And so just excellent points, Lakeisha. I think that's a great consideration for those that are joining us today. One of the things as I'm listening to everyone talk through on the panel is, how we can be supporting people, retaining, and some of the hiccups that might come along the way as you're trying to make sure that you're keeping people in place. And Beth, one of the things that crossed my mind as I was listening to you talked a lot about how your workforce has had to really move to that remote presence, right? And being able to support them remotely. Logistically, tell us a little bit, and I know we could really get in the weeds on this, but I'm just thinking through people that may have had better or worse access to technology, maybe just some, disproportionate access to internet speeds and things like that. Walk us through maybe how you had to adjust for some of that in supporting your workforce remotely, and maybe some things that you learned that could be helpful if someone on this webinar is thinking about doing the same.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I can also touch on how we do that for our students, because that's also a big part of getting our female students into the workforce or back into the workforce. So working from home was a new adventure for everybody. As I mentioned, we had desktop computers at the time. We required an Ethernet connection to a hardwire router because that was the best way our new phone system that was built into our computers could work. The week that we were planning all of this, and that's it, the week that we planned to send everyone home because everything was shifting so quickly in early 2020, if you remember, we did a quick technology survey of all of our team members that were office-based to understand if they even had access to the internet, to understand if they had hardwire access, because think if they lived in an apartment complex that provided Wi-Fi, that wouldn't work. We also, due to regulatory concerns, couldn't allow our team members to work in, sorry, Amy, in a coffee shop because it might not, they'd have to use an open access Wi-Fi system. So we had to be very careful and thoughtful about that. We discovered that close to 90% of our team members did have access to reliable internet, which was wonderful, but there were a few that didn't. So we started partnering with local providers to understand their ability to get service and then the costs that would be associated with that. And we're happy to say a lot of people did manage to work that out. But we find that it's a real issue for our students because you can imagine that more and more jobs that allied healthcare students are getting hired into are fully remote now, which is wonderful for a student that might have dealt with transportation or childcare issues. but now they need the right technology and the right equipment and the access to the internet. So we've partnered with Comcast, who reaches about 65% of our student population, and they have a wonderful program, and I wrote it down. It's called I think Internet Essentials. And they offer $10 a month high-speed internet access. And you have to fill out some paperwork to qualify. We pay for the first 6 months for our students so that they'll have that reliable internet access as they get their feet wet in their new job. We also do things like send them sound canceling headphones to make sure they've got the right work environment and other tech needs if we learn they need it. And then we transition that ownership of that contract to the student so that they're established, they've had a few paychecks under their belt, and they're able to take that on themselves. But access to technology is a tremendous need. And you can also imagine it's a tremendous need for parents who have children that might need to be quarantined or learn at home for any reason. And I know that that was a big issue that many companies dealt with last year. So we've seen it all for sure, but we really tried to solve those problems when we could.
Excellent. That's super helpful. Thank you, Beth. I know we're kind of getting close to time wrapping up. One of the questions I wanted us to leave with today is, in each of your line of work, when you think about what you need to continue to operate business effectively for yourselves, for your businesses, for your students, for your clients, Lakeisha, how do you feel like you can be best supported in the community going forward? If you think about what the chamber can be doing to help the local chamber, the national chamber, community help or support, I'm just curious if there's anything. Maybe Amy, we can start with you, not to put you on the spot, but where do you feel like the community can be helping you most as a business owner to continue to be successful and support the community that you're serving?
I guess I would look at that a little differently than the average answer. I think we have to, we as in me and people that think differently, I think I need to add value to my community. What can I be doing to support other women-owned businesses? We just had a pop-up shop with a local artist. She is a Black woman that does art for Black art. It's amazing. And she came and did a pop-up and was able to sell some of her art. So I never look to what do I need, because I can figure that out. I'll look for the resources, I'll make connections, but how can I be helping anybody else? Even if it's just mentoring someone, giving them some advice. I just sent someone information on how to start their own business. I think it's just about kind of giving more than you're taking. And even if you need something, you're always going to get that back if you're looking for ways to help other people. So I'm just looking, how can I help the community? We even have an event coming up where we're going to walk around, and the people that do Clean Tampa, they're out there very early cleaning the city. And we're just going to go walk around and meet them and give them coffee. So it could be something little. It doesn't have to be this grand gesture or like saving another person's business, but it's just about remembering that it's not all about you. And the way that I want to move forward is, how can I support others?
You're just a poster child of a fantastic business owner, Amy. We didn't pay her to say that, I promise. That's excellent. Beth, maybe we can go to you next. When you think about ways that the community can support UMA's initiatives, both for the employees that work for you and then the students that partner with you as well, where do you feel like you could be supported best as you navigate the new norm?
Well, we're always so grateful for our employer partners that hire our graduates all over the United States, but here in Tampa Bay particularly. And we appreciate those partnerships and the ways that they're willing to work with our students to maybe re-enter the workforce or join the workforce for the first time. And that really matters. So we also, though, try to take a look like Amy does. We try to give back to our communities, and we bring our students into that effort. Right now, we're building our Making Strides Against Breast Cancer team. And last year, we had 2,600 faculty, students, and staff that walked together virtually across the United States. And that helps us build community internally and within the places that we live and work. And we think that community is self-fulfilling. That culture of care that we continue to develop within our students, within our staff, and within our communities does pay everybody back. And that's just one example, but we're also working with a local computer recycler here in Tampa to give our old desktops I mentioned back to the community, to children's organizations that could use them right now. And we just think that those kinds of things help lead to new connections, and the Chamber helped us make that connection as well. So we're just grateful for all of the work that we're able to do here in Tampa and in the other communities and where we live and work. And we just keep those employer partnerships strong so that our students always have the opportunities to succeed in their chosen path.
Excellent. Thanks, Beth. Lakeisha, anything you'd add?
You know, at the risk of sounding duplicative of what we heard, I mean, I think that the common thread here is, and this is probably cliche, but we're all in this together. I think just being mindful that we really need to partner together. You know, especially right now. I mean, in the last year and a half, we've experienced things that we probably never thought we would experience, at least at this level. And I think we're all learning things in all different industries. And I think the best way we all get through it and support one another is by sharing what we're learning. I think Amy and Beth, you know, definitely sharing on a very practical level what their businesses are doing. It's very helpful. I think it makes me better as a lawyer and advising my clients. Here are some really creative ideas that I'm hearing other employers doing. I think having more webinars like this, talking about these issues and how companies are being nimble and being flexible, getting perspective from Ashley, you know, at the next level of the Chamber, I think is helpful. And again, just continuing to have these discussions. I think that's the best thing that we can do to support each other. I think that would make us feel better supported in the community. And so I'm thankful to the Chamber for doing this event. Thanks, Erin.
Excellent. Yes, thank you, Lakeisha. As we wrap up, Ashley, the one thing I just wanted to ask, if there's anything top of mind, just some quick resources you can share. You've been a wealth of knowledge today. All the data that you brought to the table is just so enlightening, and sounds like you're making great strides at the Chamber on a national level. But anything that would be helpful for people that are on the webinar today to know, either resources for people considering starting their own businesses, trying to get back into the workforce, what resources would you say are really good for people to check out?
Great. Thank you so much for that question. And thanks to all the panelists. I'm so inspired. I cannot wait to take your stories back to the Chamber and put them in a blog or do something with them. So, I'm so thrilled to be here. You know, I always recommend the Small Business Association Office of Women's Business Ownership, SBA. There's SBA, lots of workshops. There's a National Association of Women Business Owners. There's Ladies Who Launch, who I love. They do experimental events and they have different platforms and online academies. There's Mom Entrepreneurs. They also have similar trainings. There, you know, locally in Hillsborough County, there's the Entrepreneurial Collaborative, the ECC, which I know you guys are all involved in. It's a fantastic resource for the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic. And the Association of Women Business Centers, it's just a nonprofit partner. They partner with SBA. So there's a lot. You can Google this. There's a lot of resources. I mean, there is a lot for women. Sign up for everything. There's a lot of help out there. I would say, you know, we have 12 million American companies that generate 1.9 in revenue from women. So we're here to help, and our government is here to help in many cases through SBA and in a lot of different ways. And of course, the Tampa Chamber is a wealth of resources. You guys are doing fantastic. So let me know, contact me personally if I can do anything to help. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you all for being here. We hope that you found our conversation helpful in understanding how women have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 and how your organization can implement best practices to foster an environment that is inclusive of female employees. I took a ton of nuggets away, and I hope some of you did as well. Thank you again to our awesome panel of speakers for sharing with us not only the data, but your personal experiences. For those of you that attended the webinar today, you'll receive an email from the Chamber this morning asking you to participate in a really quick survey about your experience with this event. Please take a moment to complete it. This really helps us to gauge our committee's programs of work. And if you loved it, let us know. And if there's anything we can do better, let us know that as well. If you're interested in learning more about the Chamber's Women of Influence Committee or our Workforce Development Committee, you can visit the Chamber's website for more information on how to get involved. Thanks everyone for being here. This was excellent and such a great way to start the day. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and look forward to being with you for another event very soon. Take care.